Errol Spence really proves he's the big fish. This could be problematic for Terrence Bud Crawford, and I'm gonna explain why in this video. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Make sure you smash the like button. Also subscribe to my channel for the latest and greatest in boxing. Man down. Hey, stop that cat. Errol Spence proves once again he's the big fish. I made a video about this, but this is kind of a follow-up video where I can kind of divert and go down a different avenue. The first video was more so just talking about how Errol Spence tracked higher, outsold Canelo Alvarez, and I touched on this subject, but I wanted a whole separate video to really hone in on this particular subject. Now, with Errol Spence, in case you guys missed that video, you should subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, the bell notification icon, so you get the latest and greatest in the world of boxing. But in case you did miss it, quick recap. Errol Spence versus Danny Garcia outsold. The live gate was higher than Canelo Alvarez's last fight against Caleb Smith. Now, with that being said, there are the Canelo Cinnabons and man fans, and they're trying, per usual, to find any way to hate on Errol Spence and explain why it happened. You notice when it comes to like old media, that's what they're famous for. They always have to find a reason to try to justify why it happened with the unthinkable, seemingly unthinkable, because the way they tell it, Canelo is the face of boxing, and at the end of the day, he's just in a league of his own and doing numbers of his own. That's not the truth. I've told you guys the Canelo star power continues to dwindle, and it doesn't seem to be getting better. They are reporting that he has done a 2-fight deal with Eddie Hearn's rematch room, and he's gonna fight Avni Yildirim, aka Average Pilgrim, unheralded name, unknown name, and then move on to fight Billy Joe Saunders because he's the favorite. I don't think anyone doubts that he'll get past the Yildirim fight. Now, again, people are trying to justify why it happened. I've seen people, they were angry at the video and saying, oh, it's because Errol Spence was at Jerry's World. What the hell does that have to do with anything when at the end of the day, both matches were in the same month, they were in the same state of Texas, and they were both restricted by the parameters of the pandemic and social distancing. So can you imagine a fight like Errol Spence versus Danny Garcia, right? With no pandemic, where you could just max out and however many people could go. You have to understand, people fear for their lives and, you know, don't know if it's safe for any type of gatherings. So that's obviously, pandemic is something you have to consider and is going to impact the numbers. But I feel like that type of matchup would have done really well. I didn't go to that fight because of the pandemic, but I've been to all of Errol Spence's recent fights, and not just in Texas, but his events in Texas, they're literal events. They are definite events. You know, even when he fought Ocampo, it was packed, it was lit, beautiful crowd, women were dressed up, the dudes were sharp, and it was 15,000 plus people in there, period. So the bottom line is Canelo got outsold. You could try to make any excuse you want or fake reasoning. He got outsold. Fought in the same month, fought in the same state. Errol Spence live gate was bigger. And again, it doesn't matter that the AT&T Stadium is a bigger venue because they comped $600,000 worth of tickets for Canelo's fight. In addition to that, the venue's capacity overall doesn't really matter because nobody can reach capacity during this time of uncertainty in the pandemic. So Errol Spence couldn't even do the true numbers, nor Canelo, that they were garnered to do. Now, I had to clear that up because once again, when it comes to Errol Spence, a black man, a black fighter, you continually see reasons like people, they'll always attribute Errol Spence, if he has a non-black fighter that he's facing and it does good on pay-per-view, or if it does good in terms of live attendance, the announced attendance, I've constantly seen this trend where people will, instead of just giving Errol Spence his props as the common denominator, they're doing like they did with Floyd and attributing his success and the numbers that are being spit out and put out. They're attributing it to the opponent, saying, oh, it's because he fought a Hispanic or Latino person in Mikey Garcia. Oh, it's because he fought Danny Garcia. So you mean to tell me the Texas boy from DeSoto, Dallas, that fought in Arlington, all of the fans were Danny Garcia fans from Philly, and he's from a whole different region of the world? You know, everybody, you have to understand, once again, we have the Rona. In addition to that, not everyone can travel or wants to travel. So it would be easier for Texans to move about, go from Dallas or surrounding cities, Sugarland or whatever, and then go to Arlington versus Philly. So people have lost their jobs as well. So you don't know how many people really made the trek outside of immediate friends and family in support of Danny Garcia, who was not the favorite, and, you know, went all the way down to Texas. You have to have some things set up, like your job has to allow for that. You have to have the finances to do that, etc. So all in all, we know Errol Spence is a big fish and he's selling. Now, let's get to this picture. This was a picture at a fight. Errol Spence was sat right by Shakur Stevenson, his sister, or Terrence Crawford and his sister, and Bob Arum. Now, the thing is this is very bad news for Terrence Crawford. I'm going to keep saying the same thing over and over and over until you guys get it. Crawford is an excellent fighter. The commentary that I'm giving has nothing to do with that. This doesn't have anything to do with the quality of Crawford's character or him as a fighter. I'm here to give my analysis on the sport of boxing, and some of boxing is the business of boxing, and people are beholden to the politics of boxing. The bottom line is Errol Spence is showing his celebrity. Terrence Crawford has been, quote unquote, at the level for a longer period of time, and in a shorter space of time, you see this duo right here. They've made a name for Errol Spence, won a title. Like, Crawford was already a champion in other divisions when Errol Spence wasn't. Crawford was already main eventing on HBO when Errol Spence wasn't PBC's main event. But in a short space of time, you have seen Errol Spence, his brand, and the whole package deal, you've seen it grow right before your eyes. And it's quite the brand. You know, he's reached a level of success right now where he's kind of in the driver's seat. So the reason I'm saying this is bad news for Crawford is because we just unveiled, or the WBA unveiled, and we just found out that they elevated Dennis Ugas to the WBA super champion, meaning Pacquiao was basically stripped, aka champion recess, however you want to frame that, right? That's a PBC fighter. Keep in mind, this is what I'm talking about. Keep in mind, Dennis Ugas, as brilliant as he's been recently, this was a top-ranked fighter. You guys got to look for patterns. Study why I would be mad. Dennis Ugas was formerly with Top Rank. When he was with them, he lost, and like Top Rank does, if you're not the biggest star, or they haven't really done nothing or found that level of success with you, sometimes they just move on from you. So I don't know what happened with this Top Rank contract. I don't know if they released him or what the exact detail. I think he has said in interviews that they released him, but don't quote me on that. The bottom line is he stopped working with Top Rank, went over to PBC, and he's made a whole name for himself on the platform. People have found themselves enjoying his fight. He's the WBA super champion, and he's a skillful guy representing Cuba. You know, clean cut. His wife is bad. You see him at some of the events with like Floyd Mayweather. That's a good picture, right? And he's just chilling, doing his thing. He's doing his thing. But this was a top-ranked fighter. They didn't do anything with him, especially after he started losing. You could argue that he even beat Sean Porter, right? And the bottom line is this Errol Spence is now very close. And I'm not saying like negotiations-wise, but what I'm saying proximity-wise, these are all PBC fighters. So Errol Spence is in a position right here and now. Mark these videos down, because the videos that I say they turn out to be gospel. And then you see it happen, you see the future, and you see it manifest and materialize right before your very eyes. Errol Spence is in a position where he can fight Ugas. Should he beat Ugas, which he would probably be the favorite to do. That's another great picture with Wilder. Should he beat Ugas, then he will collect another belt. This is Thanos and the Infinity Stones. So that just became so much more easy. That becomes easier because your Dennis Ugas has the super belt. Pacquiao's trying to fight Ryan Garcia or whatever he's doing. So they said, we don't got time for that. And now he don't have his belt anymore. The belt he defeated Keith Thurman and achieved. So that puts Errol Spence in a wonderful position of capturing, or at least having the best opportunity to capture another title. So the reason I'm saying bad news for Crawford is possibly potentially in between promoters. You know, his promoter threw him under the bus. Errol Spence just outsold Canelo. Your Dennis Ugas, a PBC fighter who used to be with Top Rank, no longer with Top Rank, and currently with PBC, and Al Heyman just got leveled up to a full champion. And Errol Spence has posted a subliminal hint that he wants to go after Ugas. He said, now you got something I want, something to this effect. So it's not looking good for Terrence Crawford in the journey of welterweight supremacy. Pacquiao doesn't look like he wanted to fight Errol Spence. Not if he, and I have sources that told me Pacquiao's team reached out to Ryan Garcia's team. They probably heard Ryan Garcia say, we want to make the fight. And, you know, now they're allegedly working on it or whatever. So it doesn't look like Pacquiao prefers to fight Spence. Doesn't matter anyway because he don't have no belt. You know, it's still a good fight, but it just lost its luster because he doesn't have his belt anymore. So what is Terrence Crawford going to do? His promoter, his current promoter, Bob Arum, just threw him under the bus, said I could have bought a big, vast house in Beverly Hills. You said you wanted 60-40, possibly 50-50 with Errol Spence. How are you going to get that if Errol Spence fights you guys and collects that third belt? And I know the haters are going to be mad. I know the people who want to see certain entities survive or thrive, they're going to be mad. But if we're being honest, it makes no sense for Errol Spence to bypass you guys who just got the belt. He has respect in the boxing. He's probably not going to demand, and he's probably going to come to the table reasonable, and know that Errol Spence is the A-side, know that this will be his biggest payday of his career and a huge opportunity to get his hands on 2 other belts. So he's going to probably bow down and be easier to work with in securing an Errol Spence fight. Unlike Terrence Crawford, who says he wants the lion's share of money. If not, he wants 50-50. And Errol Spence, he said, nah, he'll get 60-40, 70-30 or whatever we get him. So all in all, there is a clear, at least as of right now, there are clear hurdles that would have to be leaped for Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford to even happen. So why would you deal with the person that is not aligned with your people? You don't have no necessary, like no affinity to, like you don't have no alliance or allegiance to do right by Crawford or do right by Top Rank or Bob Arum. And you could fight for a belt, which a Crawford fight would be a fight for a belt. And realistically, if we're being honest, you guys' resume at welterweight is perhaps better than Crawford. At the very least, it's not far off, because you guys has fought ranked guys, and he fought Sean Porter and arguably beat him. He fought Omar Figueroa. You know what I'm saying? So he got the skills. He got a belt. He already had the belt, and he just got leveled up because Pacquiao was playing. You know, it's going to be a hard road from what I can see for Terrence Crawford negotiations-wise, because you continue to lose power. You continue to lose leverage. I don't see this working favorably in Crawford's favor. You know, I don't see this. I don't see the vision, you know, and maybe it's not for me to see. But all I know is Errol Spence's brand is popping, and Crawford continues to almost take a back seat. Errol Spence has a better resume than Crawford, definitely at welterweight. He already has 2 belts, which is more than Crawford. And then on top of that, he has direct access where him and his team can make a Ugas fight, or at least build towards that, and probably get that off a lot easier than a fight with Terrence Crawford, who at this point, some of his demands or what he feels he's entitled to don't seem realistic. Or PBC could even flip it like this: give Errol Spence a tune-up, have Keith Thurman fight Ugas and make that fight, and then Errol Spence fight the winner, which would be a great way to build the fight. Or he could just straight away go straight into a Ugas unification for 3 of the belts. Now, my final question to you guys is this: how can Crawford demand 60-40 because he was undisputed at 140? I don't see that as being enough leverage. How could he demand 60-40, 50-50 if in the division in which you want to fight Errol Spence has the better resume, has done the bigger tickets, outsold Canelo, and if he gets his hand on that belt Ugas got, so he'll have 3 belts to your 1. I mean, come on, bro. And the funny thing is, if you notice my channel, I'm consistent. Old media isn't. Old media, this is kind of the same conundrum that Wilder Joshua. When Joshua had 3 belts in the Klitschko name, people said, oh, Joshua fought the better people because he got the Klitschko fight, and he has 3 belts to Wilder's 1. And they were adamant about this, and they were adamant about Wilder doesn't deserve the lion's share of money. No matter how popular he was or how many knockouts he had, they said Joshua got Klitschko, better resume, so he got 3 belts, so he's the captain of the ship. Now let's see old media try to switch it and act like Terrence Crawford has leverage, and what I'm saying doesn't make any sense. I was at this fight. It was hot as hell this day. It was so hot. That Dallas heat be different. Now, after Joshua, and the funny thing is, when it came to Wilder Joshua, I said the same thing. I just wanted to see the fight. I knew, I at least said that Wilder, I didn't say Wilder was entitled to the lion's share of money. I just said make it reasonable. You see what I'm saying? So I never disputed or had a problem with Joshua making more at that given point, because he was undefeated. He had 3 belts and he had the Klitschko fight at that point. So, and Wilder didn't even have the Luis Ortiz Fury fights in the bag. So those things happened after. So I wasn't even opposed to Joshua getting the lion's share of money. So let's just see how old media tries to switch it and try to justify, say, oh, Errol Spence, who cares if you, listen, quick business lesson. If you have leverage, don't give it up, period. There's no reason for Errol Spence to have worked hard on his brand, PBC Al Heyman, to work to create this monster and this opportunity and this opening. All that to give it up to Crawford, an outsider, makes no sense. You know what I'm saying? If you got a poppin' podcast, Joe Rogan or Joe Budden or something, you're not going to give up leverage. You're going to be like, yeah, we got this huge fan base, boom, boom, boom. If you're Drake and you can ask for certain amenities and things like that because you're Drake and you're putting out these sales, then that's what you're going to do. Ain't nobody in business going to work hard and obtain and achieve certain milestones to get leverage and then double back and give up the leverage to an outsider and to a competitor and say, oh, all this stuff I've worked for. And it's funny because what I'm saying is just elementary and common sense. Canelo, you think he's going to give Avni Yildirim do any favors for him? Caleb Smith, he got Caleb Smith fighting a 4-week training camp, fighting off at a 4-week training camp. Nobody complains about this. But when it's a black fighter like Errol Spence, they say, oh, be fair and you should just give him 50-50. For what? Why you give someone 50-50 when you work hard? You know what I'm saying? You got to earn whatever in this life. So there's just always a different rule set for black fighters, PBC fighters, Al Heyman advised fighters. It just seems to be a whole different script for that. They'd say, oh, Errol Spence, stop being, petty. Just put all that aside and just fight him anyway. Who cares about the business? Who cares about if the demands are realistic? Just throw all that away and give Crawford what he wants to make the fight be the bigger person for boxing. But they don't tell that to Canelo. They don't say, hey, give David Benavidez or Jamal Charlo 50-50 just to get this fight done. Funny how that works. Drop your thoughts in the comment section. Gang.
So if you enjoyed this video and want more content like this on the channel, you can show your appreciation by going to the PayPal donate button or the YouTube support button, and you can donate any amount that you feel is equivalent to the value of this video. Much more to come. Thank you guys for your support. Boxingego, the future of boxing.